Will you lead me to paradise?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Curtis, and today I'm going to review episode 2 of Smoke. The episode actually begins with a flashback. We see a young girl, who I'm going to assume is a young Michelle, is hiding inside of a closet. The camera then pans around. We see that the house is actually on fire. The scene then flashes to an older Michelle who's watching the surveillance footage from the store, and she notices that the person who committed the crime is not limping, which is weird because he was limping on the exterior video footage, but he's not in the interior video footage. She calls Gustin over to look at it, and he is somewhat impressed, or at least he's pretending to be. And he tells her that the milk jug arsonist committed another crime and that a baby was actually inside of the house. He also informs her that the arsonist was at the bar and shows her a sketch of Freddy. And I'm not sure if you all saw it, but that sketch looked nothing like Freddy. Speaking of Freddy, Freddy goes back to work, and a customer named Brenda starts flirting with him. And I was like, okay, Freddy, I see you. And side note, I did notice something about Freddy during this episode. He whispers when he talks. And so it's almost as if he's not confident in what he's saying. I'm not really sure what that's about, but I hope they expand on that. But Brenda continues to flirt with him and eventually tells him that she believes that he will become the manager one day. So later that day, he actually goes onto the company's website and he looks to see if a position is available for the manager. And while he is looking at that, a video does come up. And in the video, there's the person basically talking about, the company and also talk about the qualifications. And it turns out that he needs to have a high school diploma in order to apply. And he doesn't say anything during this scene, but he does start drinking some wine. And then the next day we see him back at work, and he tells his coworker that he did not apply for the position because he is required to have a high school diploma. And then he tells him that he doesn't have the diploma, but he does have a GED. And his coworker says that that is pretty much an equivalent to a diploma at that restaurant, so he should still apply. Michelle and Gustin go to the hospital to visit the victim of the most recent fire, and he tells them that he did not see the person who committed the crime at the restaurant, nor did he see him at the house. And I honestly felt really bad for the man because he was trying to save his baby. He ended up getting burned really bad. So I really felt, bad for him. But speaking of Michelle, she did receive a letter in the mail, and it is for a parole hearing. She goes outside and she FaceTimes a woman, and she tells the woman that she received a letter. And the lady tells her that she was already aware of the parole hearing, and so she's not really shocked to hear it. But she also says she does not believe that the person is going to get out because people died. And I was like, what is this about? So they need to expand on that as well. Michelle and Gustin meet up again, and they decide to follow Arch, who ends up leading them to a trailer that is in a secluded area, and it's also fenced in. Arch ends up getting out of his truck, takes some items out, and then he goes inside the trailer before he goes home. It is nighttime at this time, so they decided they want to do a stakeout, right? And I initially thought that this would be for like a day, maybe 2 days, but they ended up being out there for 5 days, and I was just like, nah, couldn't be me. Next, we see Freddy, who is dressed up. He goes into the restaurant and tells his coworker that he was right about the GED. It looks like he's getting ready to say something else, but he stops once he hears Brenda ordering food. Brenda, she is giving the cashier a hard time, but it's honestly in good fun. Freddy comes out to the front and she notices that he is dressed up, and she knows that it's because he's trying to become the manager. She tells him that she owns a shop and that she will cut his hair for free so that he can look good for the interview. And I was just thinking to myself, like, okay, either Freddy's going to end up fucking Brenda, he's going to end up killing Brenda, or he's going to end up fucking her and then killing her. Either way it goes, I see something happening between these two because she definitely wants to give him some pussy, and it looks like he needs someone to be honest with you. He ends up taking her up on her offer and goes to the salon, and he actually starts crying. I was just like, wow, I need to know his entire backstory. After this, we see Michelle, who has decided to go to the secluded area where the trailer is on her own. And I'll be honest with you all, I was nervous for her, I can't even lie. She pulls out her gun and begins to walk towards the trailer and is eventually able to get inside the trailer. As she is walking through the trailer, she notices that the floor feels funny. She turns on a small light and she notices that there's a latch on the floor. She pulls it up and she's able to go down into what we now find out is an underground bunker. And I was just like, okay, sis, you're doing a little too much. She walks through the bunker and eventually ends up in a room that has a bed, straps, and handcuffs. She's getting ready to look around the room a little bit more, but stops when she hears a noise. She turns around and starts shooting, and she actually ends up shooting Arch, who has a large gun in his hand and both of his thighs. And then she starts to torture him, and I was so confused and perplexed at this point because I was just like, okay. You two had a heated discussion in the previous episode. It's clear that he may be a little bit racist. don't you think that he's going to tell leadership about what happened? So that was something that was on my mind, but you know what? She continues to torture him. But then eventually she ends up going outside and she notices that his truck is there. So she ends up going back inside. She ends up grabbing some of his guns because he has a gun collection or a room full of guns. And she ends up putting some of the guns in the back of the truck. And then she calls the ATF for help, right? And so they end up getting there and she ends up lying, of course, about what happened. And one of the agents, it looks like he's kind of on the same page, like on the same team. But there's another one. She's a woman. She's looking her up and down. It's clear that she doesn't believe her and she knows that it's bullshit. But she doesn't say anything and just walks away. And at this time, Arch is being carried out and he tells her that her career is over. But to be honest with you, it appears that it's actually Arch's career that may be over. Because like I said a little bit earlier, he has a room full of like big guns. He has this underground bunker. And so he's the one that actually looks crazy in this situation. And it is very important to note that at this time, Gustin is informed about what happened. Speaking of Gustin, he goes to the kitchen where his wife is, and she tells him that they have a crisis on her hand. She's getting ready to explain what the crisis is, but he cuts her off and tells her that Michelle actually shot Arch twice, and also tells her that the book, which I forgot to mention in the last review, I do apologize, was actually rejected by an agent. And it becomes clear that she really doesn't care. She actually asks him if he's done. I was like, oh, what is this about? So she goes on to tell him that Emmett's father is moving 2,000 miles away. And this part threw me off because I thought that was Gustin's son. But I guess that explains why there was so much awkwardness between them in the car. And she tells him that Emmett will have to live with them full time until he goes to college. And I'll be honest with you, I do not think Gustin gives a single fuck about Emmett, his father, or the fact that he's moving, even though he's acting like he does. And I think that she can tell this as well because she becomes very upset and she actually raises her voice at him once he starts talking about dinner. And I was like, oh, this isn't good, right? But later on that day, Emmett actually ends up making it home. And you can tell that he is devastated. Like, he is so sad. And I was trying my hardest to have sympathy for him. I really was, but I could not. Because I did not appreciate the way that he was cussing in front of his mom or the way that he was just acting in general. It was just throwing me off. Because I could tell you for me, I'm in my 30s and I still haven't cussed in front of my mom or in front of my dad. Like, that's just not something that I do. So when I see other people do it, it just kind of throws me off. And Gustin, he tries to diffuse the situation, tries to reason with them, but it does not work. And Emmett actually decides to redirect his anger towards Gustin. And let me tell you all something. Gustin, he almost lost his cool. Like, I think if his wife wasn't there, I think he probably would have put hands on him. Like, he was pissed, right? But he was able to get himself together. And also, something else I want to point out as well with Gustin that I noticed in this episode is that he has a tendency of like having this like stone face and then he would just like smile real quick. But then he will go back to the stone face and then smile real quick. And so that is something that is a little bit weird. He actually did at this point, and I wanted to, point that out. But he's like, you know what? I'm clearly not helping in this situation, so I'm just going to leave. I'm going to step out. And once he steps out, I think it's very important to note that Emmett actually waited for him to step out. Once he actually leaves, Emmett actually goes to his mom and hugs her. And so I guess he didn't want to show like any type of emotion in front of Gustin. After this, we see Michelle, who is being celebrated by her peers, which is crazy to me, at the bar. She inquires about Gustin, and she is told that Gustin normally skips events like this. She ends up going outside to smoke, and her lover boy, who is the cop that she was having an affair with, comes out to join her, and it becomes clear that neither one of them believe that Arch was the arsonist, right? He asks her if she has any more leads, right? And she says that she has somebody in mind, right? The next thing you know, we see someone going to the store. They have on a jacket, their hood up. And they walk into the store, and then we see that they set some chips on fire, right? And then the man ends up walking out of the store as the fire is, starting to get larger. And we actually see that the person is Gustin. So it's actually Gustin that was actually setting the fire, and I was shocked. And I was also thinking to myself, like, if he could just go to the store, set the fire, and potentially kill a bunch of people, what do you think he can do to Emmett? You better watch your back, Emmett. And that was the end of the episode. I really do appreciate you all watching. If you could, please like, comment, share, subscribe. I would really appreciate it. You all have a great rest of your day. Bye.